generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View starts right now.
Across America, live, this is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
Thank you for joining me today. This is the beginning of our Truth Team Week, and if you're not familiar with that, we will explain that as time goes on, but it's a way in which we can begin to come to you and talk about the way in which you can support this ministry. And a little bit later, we'll also have a chance to hear from someone else that will be with me all week, Brad Fisk, who has helped us do this before. But this first hour, I wanted to bring someone to the microphone who is probably very familiar to those of you that listen to KBDT from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Not today, but normally.
Normally.
You hear JP, Kathy, and the crew. And Kathy Ward is an individual that brings a tremendous amount of enthusiasm to that morning show, a lot of political sophistication, and is just a good friend of the ministry. So it's just great to have you here.
Well, thank you. I'm always blessed to sit in this chair opposite of you, Kerby, and hang out with the Point of View radio talk show family. And thank you so much for having me on this important day and important week.
So again, we are going to be spending some time a little bit later talking about how you can support this ministry, but we're going to get into some of these issues almost immediately. And if you're familiar with the morning show, and first of all, let me encourage you that if you happen to be listening this hour and say, you know, I never turned it on in the morning, can I encourage you to do so? Because, of course, JP is your co-host. You are always in studio just about. I watch you on Facebook, and you can watch it on Facebook. By the way, you can watch this right now on Facebook, and you can see how nicely dressed Kathy always is.
Well,
and
I have
ready
to wear my Republican red for you, Kerby.
She's got her red on and everything, and just full of enthusiasm, as she always is, but also just great insight. And even in this hour, we're going to educate you about a couple of issues. So one of the goals that we try to have is, even though we will be talking about fundraising for the ministry, we'll also in the next hour have you hearing from Foster Freeze, who has actually set aside money to help individuals that were devastated by the hurricane in the Bahamas, and how he's used philanthropy over the years to make a difference. And in the third hour, Blythe, who's been in the studio with us before, who's just one of the most outstanding pro-life activists ever, will be with us talking about how he's been able to make a difference. So they're just all sorts of things that we will be talking about over this hour, 2 or 3 hours today, but then all through the week we'll be doing that as well. But Kathy, I thought since primarily most of the people listening to this program are in Texas, although we do have a few up in Minnesota, and pretty soon we will be on the air in Chicago and other stations, I thought we would just talk about the importance of the vote. And this is one of the booklets, Making Your Vote Count. And one of the things I want to make aware of, make at least our listeners aware of, is that we used to have straight ticket voting.
Yes, we
did. I never thought
did.
that was a good idea, because I want people to go down and vote for every individual and make a decision. And I've seen really good judges get thrown out simply because people straight ticket voting. Well, for all sorts of reasons, that does not exist. So if there's ever been a time to educate people to go all the way down the ballot and to really pay attention to some of these people who would be justice of the peace. JP used to be one of those.
Right.
Some of the people that are running for judges and things like that. This is a whole different set of values, and certainly a need for us to politically educate all of our listeners, right?
Oh, absolutely. First of all of the booklets that you have in front of you, I think that's something that all conservatives, especially conservative Christians, need to have in their arsenal. I mean, it's extremely important to be educated, to have your talking points, and to be ready to talk to people. We have a lot of new people who have moved to Texas, some fantastic people, and they say stuff like, well, why don't you have a state income tax? Why don't you have some Democrats, elected as elected officials? And that we need to have our talking points ready. And the Making Your Vote Count, the biblical view on that is extremely important. If you go in, and of course, everybody who goes out to vote is going to be all excited to vote for president. Top of the ticket, highest turnout is during presidential elections. But what about, like you mentioned, the justice of the peace? JP, who is the host on the show I co-host every morning, we talk about how important it is. He was a judge that did the we the people work, the everyday work of just normal Joe public. If you have somebody who's trying to legislate from that bench, it can be disastrous. So it's extremely crucial, and I always like to get up on my soapbox about this. Get yourself educated about the people on the ballot. But come November of 2020, when it comes time to go in and say, well, I'm just going to vote Republican, then that means starting at the top and touching every single one of those positions on that electronic voting booth. It is more crucial than ever that not only do we get people encouraged to get out and vote for the conservatives on the ticket, but also to vote all the way down the ballot. It has to be done.
And again, people that in the past said, well, it really isn't that big a deal to pay attention to who the mayor is. Then we have the mayor in Houston that subpoenaed the actual sermons of pastors.
So maybe it is important for that.
People to say, well, why should I pay attention to who the county commissioner is? Oh, by the way, you were a county commissioner.
And I was a county commissioner. I mean, we determined the entire budget. We determined roads. We determined public utilities for the entire county. And so if you haven't paid attention to those local down the ballot races, they're just as important as the races that affect us in D.C.
Yeah, and just imagine, oh, well, I won't pay attention who's on the school board, and then all of a sudden you have the drag queen people show up at the public schools.
So and you wonder, and again, we always get upset. And we're like, well, we lost control, and what happened? We didn't vote.
We didn't vote, and we didn't pay attention.
Good conservative Christian people who think they're doing the right thing sat home, and then we let the liberals in, and then look what happens.
And again, some of these votes are so close. You know who Matt Rinaldi, who sat in that chair a while back, and he lost. Matt Shaheen, he was very close to win.
Too close for comfort. Too close for comfort.
People that say, well, I don't think my vote counts, I can point them to some people that have been sitting in that chair over the last couple of years.
Absolutely.
Who either won just barely by the hair's breadth or lost because of that. So again, we should pay attention to that.
You're so right about that.
And I thought I'd ask you one other question.
Yes.
This comes from the Dallas Morning News, so it must be true.
Okay, so is this the fake news or is this a real article you pulled out, Kerby?
It turns out that the Dallas Morning News actually summarized the Texas Lyceum poll, and they found something very interesting, that when you look at these various issues that are supposedly so controversial, they really aren't. They found that, for example, 82% of Republicans, 84% of Democrats believe that an electronic voting machine should print out a paper backup of the ballot. Well, in the state, in the county that you and I work in, that's actually going to be taking place.
Yes, it is.
Let's take the most controversial. They found that, interesting enough, most voters thought that we should have a government-issued photo identification to vote. This is where you did see a split. 90% of Republicans approved the idea, only 72% of Democrats. But we've always been told...
But still, that's overwhelming.
That just shows you that when people complain about having to have a voter ID to go and vote, the people that are complaining are the small minority. Most Americans say, I use a photo ID for everything else. Why wouldn't I use that to vote?
Can you imagine, Kerby? Can you imagine walking into a bank and not being asked for a photo ID and withdrawing $150 out of your account, as I use air quotes, because, again, photo ID we don't seem to mind in other places. When you write a check at most stores now, which I know most people don't write checks any longer, but when you write a check, you have a photo ID that accompanies that. So voting, which is, is a right. Why would that be a problem?
Yeah.
Plus, I don't know anybody who doesn't carry a photo ID.
I know. And I love your comment about check, because Nick Pitts, who oftentimes sits here on Tuesday, he'll be with us tomorrow, the Millennial Roundtable. One time
Nick's
we said
great.
check, and he said, what's a check? Which dates us a little bit.
Yes.
We're going to take a break, and we have a lot more to cover with Kathy Ward right after this.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
Earlier this month, NFL quarterback Drew Brees appeared in a short video to promote Bring Your Bible to School Day. It wouldn't even be worth a mention in most years, but a number of critics slammed him for producing the video since it was a promo video for Focus on the Family. Again, this wouldn't be controversial even a few years ago, but the culture is different now. Social media lit up with claims that Focus on the Family is a religious extremist group and that this organization is anti-LGBTQ. One even argued that it's not right that Drew Brees, who he called a crazed fool, has an NFL job while Colin Kaepernick does not. Fortunately, another commentator suggested Brees has a job in the NFL because he's one of the 5 best QBs to ever play the game and will own nearly every major record by the time he retires. As for the character of Drew Brees, former NFL running back and former teammate Reggie Bush posted this response. He said, anyone who doubts Drew Brees' character or believes bogus headlines about this man does not know him, period. He is a great father, husband, leader, and most of all, true man of God. The drummed-up controversy over Drew Brees' video is merely a minor scuffle in the larger culture war, but it once again reminds us that associating with any organization, including one of the status and positive reputation of Focus on the Family, will invite criticism. Not so long ago, when a celebrity, either an actor, athlete, or civic leader, endorsed an event like See You at the Pole or Bring Your Bible to School Day, the positive publicity enhanced his or her reputation. This latest skirmish will certainly cause many to reconsider whether they want to promote an event that used to be widely praised. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
For a free copy of Kerby's booklet, A Biblical View on Anti-Semitism, go to viewpoints.info/antisemitism. Viewpoints.info/antisemitism.
Point of View, Truth Team. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, and of love, and of a sound mind.
And that's our theme this week, and we're going to be spending a lot more time talking about that over the next couple of hours. But I have Kathy Ward with us right now. And Kathy, what a surprise. We haven't even talked much about Truth Team yet, but already we have a very large single gift. So
It's
we want to
fantastic.
thank Beth from Georgia. Wanted the donation to go through on Monday to apply towards the match, which we certainly will do.
Hi,
so.
Beth. Thank
And
you.
so, Beth,
God bless
thank
you. That's
and,
awesome.
Matter of fact, I'm going to, I think, go to Georgia sometime this year. We, from time to time, go
Right.
to these various places. And so I've been to Mississippi. I've been to Alabama. You're going to love this. I was just up in Alaska, North Pole, Alaska.
I would love to hear a whole nother show on that, Kerby.
So anyway, but that was one of those kinds of things. But nevertheless, it probably would be good to mention just real briefly now, and we will do more of that in the next hour for the national program, the opportunity for you to actually participate. Now, first of all, for your gift monthly of any size, you will receive the Outlook magazine, and I write for that. Penna Dexter writes for it. Nick Pitts writes for it. We're going to get Kathy Ward to write something for it sometime. I know Ivy's going to maybe write for it in the future. She's the newest one on staff, so you'll receive that. But if you decide to give at a $50 a month level, then these kinds of booklets, and I'll hold up this one on capitalism and socialism, your vote counts, and a number of others. You receive one of these every single month, and I'm writing new ones. And you also receive this beautiful Point of View tumbler. So that's for $50 a month. And we found that a lot of people say, well, you know, I could probably give you a little more than $1 a day, which is $30 a month.
Right.
You know, I could give you $2 a month, a day, and that's like $60, so whatever. But if for $50 a month or more, you'll receive the booklet, you'll receive the Outlook magazine, you'll receive the tumbler. But I know I look like Vanna White, don't I?
I love it. I love it.
At the $100 a month level, you receive all of that. The Outlook, you receive the booklets, you receive the Tumblr, but you'll also receive this. This, for those of you watching online right now, is the Life Essentials Bible. Now, what I have here is the older version of it, but the new version will not be in the stores till March. So you will be able to get something that you cannot buy right now. But what it does is this is a Bible put together by our good friend Gene Getz, who's been on this program for decades. He's actually been in every studio Point of View's ever had, which is kind of interesting. And he actually sometimes has prayed over the new studios. But this, first of all, is a Bible with just all sorts of great insights. But over the years, he's put together over 1,500 different principles on how to apply biblical principles to our life, what he calls super cultural principles. Principles that applied in the first century still apply in the 21st century, and those are in the Bible. So if you certainly have the Bible, you have the kind of thing we do at Point of View every day, where we actually try to apply biblical principles to every area. But you notice this is a QR code. And that means that if you can actually take your phone and hover over that, what it will do is on each one of these spots, 1,500 different spots in the Bible, it will pop up a video, which is about 10 minutes long. It's usually Gene Getz teaching on that particular issue. Now, for people that have those on their phone, then you have access not only to a Bible, but you have access to, what did they say? I think I have 250 hours of
That's
videos.
amazing. That's amazing.
Like a seminary education.
Right.
Now, some people say, well, I don't have a phone that does that. Well, it's also available on the computer, and they give you a link to the computer. And if you said, well, I'm just not real computer literate, what I say is find a son, a daughter, a grandson, or a granddaughter, and
Someone
they will
younger
get you.
than 20.
And you got to tell your story because you're pretty computer literate. But the other day with you Striders, you finally said you needed your sons to help you do some of that.
It was so funny. I was at the Strutter. I was a Texas State Strutter back in college, which is the dance team. And we had a whole group of us out there and the girls from all 6 decades. And it was so funny because those of us from the 80s, when we were trying to share pictures, we're trying to figure out AirDrop. And we're all like, oh, gosh, we need our kids.
Yes.
You know, and we're like, and how embarrassed would they be right now for us that we can't turn on AirDrop?
So the good news is if you are computer literate, this is actually a seminary education.
Absolutely.
I mean, 250 hours
well,
of videos.
and Kirby, we go back to talking about these little the little books that you have, and also just the people who tune into your show every day. It teaches you how to talk to other conservatives, and if we don't do that, Kirby, we are dead in the water in 2020 in the state of Texas. And I know I've heard you say this, as goes Texas, as goes the rest of the nation. It's imperative that conservatives and Christians get out there. And maybe you find your talking point in one of these little 10-minute videos. Maybe you find your talking points in these different things. I mean, you've got one on social media. You've got one on drug abuse. These are all things that we've got to talk about with our fellow Christians.
Let's talk about this for just a minute, because I've got the one on capitalism and socialism and climate change. Have you ever heard of
some of the
Green
favorite
New Deal?
topics for all of the
Green
bajillion candidates who are running for president on the other side.
You know, you've been in the political realm a long time, as have I.
Yes.
And I have never seen anything quite like this. The Green New Deal, which the best estimates are, just in the first year of implementation alone, would cost the average household more than the average household brings in. $70,000.
So explain the math to me on that when I'm trying to put food on my table.
And all those kinds of issues.
Well, everything's free, Kirby. Didn't you know that? Everything's free. But then we're not going to be able to do it with planes or cows. So it baffles me. I even wonder, under AOC's plan, I was like, so how do the people who live in different places like, I don't know, Hawaii, do they build a tube under the sea? Is that not going to impact the fishes? I mean, it's insanity what we're hearing. But because these liberals are putting them out to our youth on social media, they're taking that as the truth and history. That's scary.
Let's take those issues on for just a minute. And I've got a commentary coming out in a couple of days where I talk about some of the claims. Bernie Sanders promises no one will ever have to pay for public college or universities again. Elizabeth Warren promises that no American parents will pay more than 7% of their income on child care. Kamala Harris the other night was even saying the average teacher will receive a $13,500 per dollar a year raise. Pete Buttigieg says he wants to cut the number of incarcerated Americans by half without an increase in crime. Andrew Yang says that every adult citizen will receive $1,000 a month from the government forever. Oh, and didn't Joe Biden say that he was going to cure cancer?
Oh, yes, which... Let's talk about Joe Biden for just a second. Okay, so now you're going to find another candidate besides Robert Francis O'Rourke, who literally just makes me go nuts. So Joe Biden is up there talking about all of these things he's going to do when he's president. How long has he been in D.C.?
Yes.
How long has he been part of the swamp? Why didn't he get the job done when he was a senator, when he was vice president? No, but let me be president now, and everything, including a cure for cancer, will come around.
And that's what I wanted to get to, because in my commentary, I said there's two issues. Issue number one, of course, that's in everybody's head is, how are you going to pay for this at a $22 trillion? But you're bringing in the second point I bring up, and that is, where do they get the confidence that government can do this? Don't you remember when we had shovel-ready projects that weren't shovel-ready? Do you remember when there were veterans dying because of incompetencies at the VA?
Oh, yes.
Do you remember when people promised that the Affordable Care Act would make health care affordable? So it isn't just how are we going to pay for this, which I think is issue number one.
Right.
But second of all, what gives you the confidence that government in the past has had a track record that gives you confidence you'll be able to accomplish this in the future? Is that fair?
And Kerby, that's a very fair statement, and it's a great question. And I think this is, again, something conservatives need to talk about, because liberals are out there saying they know best. They know better than our families. They know better than our churches. They know better. They've got solutions that are better than private sector companies that don't cost half the money. So where is this? It comes off as an arrogance, and we need to stand up and say, hey, we the people think that we the people know best.
Yes.
And you see this over and over in the debates, which are painful to watch. They're even painful to read the clips the day after, because these are people who I feel like are talking down to good American people. Mm-hmm. They're condescending. And when was that ever okay? If you're elected to serve, you are a public servant, and doggone it, I'm your boss.
And when you think of Peter Buttigieg, or Mayor Pete,
yes,
who's basically saying that if you voted for Trump, you're a racist. Well, then what you're saying is, I'm first of all writing off a lot of people. You know that the typical line from most politicians was, "I trust in the wisdom of the American people," even if behind the scene they're saying, "I think these people are idiots."
Right.
You know, at least you don't try to write off half of the voting populace.
As racist, and they're calling us. We're being called racist. Well, you know, when me as a female, because I did not vote for a female presidential candidate. Well, then how dare I? And
You're
did my
anti-feminist?
Oh, yes. And did my husband bully me into that vote? Which he's listening right now, and I'm sure he just spit his coffee out laughing. I'm sure they're gonna get a good kick out of that in his office. But it's just ridiculous. And why resort to name calling just because I believe differently than somebody else?
We'll be back right after this.
When I turn on the news, there are days I wonder what's happened to our nation. So many things seem to be turned on their head. It makes you wonder, what can be done about it? Then I remember how Jesus talked about the power of truth and how it can set people free. We know the truth, and when it's spoken in love, it has the power to bring healing to our divided world. 2 Timothy reminds us that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Is it possible in our day and age to once again see civil debate, common sense, and national unity? It seems very clear from 2 Timothy that we are to be bold, not fearful, to appreciate God's power to do good, and to demonstrate to the world His truth and love. But to communicate this to a broken world, they need you to join our team. Join the Truth Team. Your monthly support has the power to turn our nation back to real truth. Join the Truth Team today at pointofview.net/team or by calling 1-800-347-5151. That's pointofview.net/team or 1-800-347-5151.
Point of View will continue after this.
You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kerby Anderson.
Back once again, and we're going to encourage you to go to our website. It wasn't up when we started, but it is now. And Karen just came in here and gave you a big hug, but Karen has put this up, and so we now have all the information about Truth Team, and also the key verse, 2 Timothy 1:7. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And if you go to the website, as some of you already have done and made your pledge, we encourage you to do so. Any monthly partner, of course, will receive the Outlook magazine. But if you want to give at the what we call the Liberty Club level, that's $50 a month or more, you'll receive not only that, but this nice tumbler. It says Point of View, and these booklets. I'm going to talk about constitutional interpretation here in just a minute. And so that is certainly available, and you can see a little bit more at the $100 level, which we call the Century Club level, which includes all of the things we've talked about here. I feel like Vanna Wright, I know, but and the Bible, which is not here at the moment because it walked out the door because some people wanted to look through it very quickly before we talk about that next hour.
And that's an amazing Bible, and what an amazing way to learn how to talk to people.
It's all available at our website, pointofview.net, and the banner there has Truth Team, so click on that. Of course, if you'd like to call at any point, of course, that number is 800-347-5151. And before we get back into it, Kathy, I thought we might talk about the need. Let's face it, you are actually working at KBDT, and you must just have like hundreds of people doing research for you.
No.
and people sometimes talk about my research staff. I'm going, you're looking at it right here.
This is me.
And let's just face it, we haven't been paying full salaries to some of our individuals. And I'm tired of paying half salaries, and we're going to lose some of our talented people if we don't get to the point of meeting the financial needs of the organization.
Right.
So this is why we come to you twice a year to just say, oh, by the way, we do raise our financial support. We are dependent upon your gifts to bring these programs to you. We have some very significant financial needs. We wouldn't come to you if we didn't. And we've oftentimes said that we have about 1% of all the listeners support us. Well, that's really very optimistic. It's about 1/3 of a percent
right,
that actually give. So we're calling for some of you right now listening to this program to give to this ministry so that we can pay people what they deserve. And as they do so, then we certainly can provide an opportunity. You might say, well, I hear all these people on the program. Well, Penna Dexter doesn't work here full time. Kelly Shackelford just comes in on Friday to help us out. Debbie Georgiadis or even Nick Pitts sits in this chair usually on a Tuesday. Well, he's got a full-time job. He's the vice president at Dallas Baptist University. So when you start hearing this, you realize, okay, we have very few people. Even on the morning show, was it just the three of you?
Oh yeah, I mean, we end up relying on the name of our show is JP, Kathy, and the Crew, and we've got a number of members of the crew that are very active that send us information throughout the day, and that's where we glean some of our best stories from then. So you do what you can with what you have. But with a show like this, you have to have at least a skeleton crew up and running, and in order to do that, you need money, and that money that's the best bang for your buck because you're going to help educate people. You're going to help hear the stories that you can take back to your church, to your group of friends, and talk about. So we make sure that we have good people elected, that we have good people in place, and that we, the people, are being served.
Sure. And again, at KBDT, you, of course, have some commercials and things like that. And I think they've done a very good job in the USA Radio Network to do that.
Yes.
But when they listen to Point of View, they might occasionally hear a commercial and say, well, that's your income. No, it isn't. I mean, we're just dependent upon the gifts
That's
of
part of it.
individuals.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly. That's just part of it.
So that is certainly part. And so, again, I just want to encourage you now that it's up on our website here, pointofview.net. You can see the Truth Team and your gift. First of all, is something that is going to help this ministry continue on. But more importantly, we know that you don't give to get. But again, there's some tremendous resources. And one of those, of course, if you give at the $50 a month level, are these booklets. And I want to hold up this one right now on constitutional interpretation. And you know as well as I do, Kathy, that a lot of these liberal ideas go nowhere in the legislature. They go nowhere in the Congress, but they get implemented because of the courts. And so the other day we announced that we have now had something that's a historic milestone. Lindsey Graham, of all people, called it a historic milestone, which I thought is kind of interesting. Lindsey Graham 2.0 is a lot better than Lindsey Graham 1.0.
I was going to say, I'm not so down on Lindsey Graham like I used to be. I've actually given him quite a few props this last year.
And he is, of course, the chairman of the Senate Judiciary.
Yes.
And pointed out that there have been 150 judicial nominees confirmed, and that sets a record that has never been set before.
It's amazing.
To give you some perspective, about 105 of those are in the federal district court, 43 in the circuit courts, and then 2 Supreme Court justices.
Right.
I think there's another opening coming up.
I was going to say, it looks like there most likely will be.
But 150, that is beyond anything that's ever happened before. There were 20 circuit court appointments.
Those are staggering numbers.
That were confirmed
they really
by
are.
Barack Obama. So what that does is it means some really significant changes, because a lot of people say, well, you just want conservatives to do what the liberals do. No. Because let's be honest, some of the conservatives simply say, let's look at the Constitution. And as a result, sometimes they won't necessarily give you the answer you're looking for, because they're going to look at the original intent of the Constitution. And I looked this up the other day. This comes from the Washington Times, which I believe is probably accurate. They found that when they looked at the various administrations' immigration policies, almost all the time, the Democrats voted against anything that the Trump administration did. In other words, if they were a judge appointed by a Democrat,
right,
53 out of 54 judges ruled against Donald Trump. However, when you look at the judges that were appointed by Republicans, it was about 50-50, 13% of the time versus 15% of the time, or 15 out of 30, I should say, individuals. So it was kind of split. 15 out of 28, 13 out of 28, I should have said. And so the point I'm making is that when you put a constitutional conservative on, they don't look at what the outcome is, whether that helps Donald Trump or not. They just simply say, what does the Constitution say about that?
Well, they're not being a political activist from the bench, Kerby. And you know how important that is, because, if you want to change law, make laws, then run for Congress or run for state rep or run for senator. But if you want to interpret the Constitution and not have political activism behind that bench, then you've got to go with the conservative choices, because they're going to strictly look at the Constitution, which is what they should do. What a crazy concept.
Yeah, and Kelly Shackelford has said that this may be the first time since the 1920s when we've actually had 5 justices on the Supreme Court that really want to look at the Constitution.
Right.
Which means, even as old as I am, that's older than me.
That's before your time.
This is something we've never had before. They've thrown out the Lemon Test and some other things.
Right.
So they're now looking at the Constitution as it was originally interpreted. And the other day, I had Jim Dennison in studio. You know Jim Dennison.
Yeah, yes.
And he was saying, I need to read this. And I said, well, the reason you need to is, he said, I've talked to some of my friends that say, well, you just have a different view of the Constitution. I said, no, here is an example that I use in here that works very well. Think about actually filing a will. If you then put a will, last will and testament, and then just imagine, say, 2 or 3 decades from now, a lawyer looks at your will and says, well, I know that's what Kathy Ward said, but that's not what Kathy Ward meant. You would be furious.
Oh, you'd roll over in your grave.
And your kids would be furious.
Exactly.
No,
that's a great analogy. I'm stealing that.
Yes, and so I think it helps people understand that you want to interpret the will as you wrote it at the time, when you and your husband wrote it, so that you wanted to make sure that your children, and maybe even your grandchildren,
were taken care of.
And you would be horrified, and your heirs would be horrified, if a lawyer came in here and said, well, that's what it says here, but it really doesn't mean that.
I think maybe she wants to give it to these nonprofits that I'm on the board for. And seriously, that's what's being done in the judicial system with some of these judges, these activist judges.
So again, this is one of the reasons I make these booklets available, because I want people to figure out what is the best argument I can come up with when I'm talking not just to someone who agrees with me,
Right.
but somebody who disagrees with me. And what do I do when I run into so many of these young people that believe that socialism, Kathy, after
This
the break.
is frightening.
After the break, I want to talk about these young people who believe that socialism is better than capitalism.
Right.
And I want to send them to Venezuela for a week.
Yeah,
or
send them there for a
Cuba
week and let them work and
figure it out.
see if you like it. See
Right.
how you like it then.
So again, as we go to the break here, let me just mention again that we have an opportunity for you to go to the website, pointofview.net, join the team, and we have a match, so we will certainly match it dollar for your gift. And so we haven't even announced all that. We'll do that next hour when we have Brad here. And I also know we have somebody else who's probably going to want to put some more on the match. That'll be one of our guests. But again, you can go to the website, pointofview.net, or you can give us a call. 800-347-5151, and you'll receive the tumbler, you'll receive the booklets, and, of course, for your gift of any amount, you, of course, receive the Outlook magazine. So let's take a break. We want to hear from a few of you, and I want to hear what Kathy has to say about socialism right after these important messages.
Point of View, Truth Team. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, and of love, and of a sound mind.
Again, the theme for this week, and we are excited about the response we're already receiving, but we do need to hear from you. 1-800-347-5151 or pointofview.net. Kathy Ward with us for just a few more minutes, and I'm glad that they didn't work you so hard this morning because I don't know how we could get you in here from first 7 to 9 at that studio and then come over to this studio and have you on at noon.
It's worth it to hang out with you and the rest of the Point of View family over here. I think this is a fantastic group of people, and they're doing the right thing. And we need more people doing that, Kerby, because Victory 2020, which hopefully will be Victory 2020, is right around the corner. You know, it'll be November of 2020 before you know it.
Let's talk about that, too, because you and I will see each other tonight. I'm
a
precinct chairman.
Because we have nothing else to do.
And I ran into somebody the other day who says, I found that there is no precinct chairman in my precinct. Kerby, tell me, how much work is it? And I said, well, it's as little or as much as you want to do. You can come to the meetings and maybe walk a precinct once, or you can get involved in these committees. And so it really, you can decide, but there are still a number of precincts where people are precinct chair.
Right.
And they could run and become a precinct chair and learn a little bit more.
Absolutely.
But even if they don't do that, just to let their friends, neighbors, and coworkers know there's an election coming up, and the importance of that election is really key. There's so many ways you can get involved. You can get in touch with your local county party, which, Collin County GOP, Republican Party. Just Google it, and it'll pull up their website. Go like their Facebook page, follow them on Twitter, email somebody and let them know, hey, I'd like to be involved. And, everybody always thinks, well, maybe I don't want to knock on doors. Like you and I are a glutton for punishment. We'll go out and knock on doors, and we love that. Or make phone calls. There are 10 million other ways you can get involved and spread the word. But one of those ways is being informed. And these booklets that are part of the your giving packet are crucial, like capitalism and socialism. Time to find out what you think about these young people. And again, you've been a teacher. I haven't really done a great job of educating everybody about the fact you've been in education. You have children of your own and all the rest. And you just see that the younger you are, the more likely you are to believe that socialism is better than capitalism.
Well, and Kerby, unfortunately, you see polls, like literally, I just did a Google search on millennials who believe in socialism, and I've got at least 15 articles where I can click and I can tell you percentages where millennials think socialism is best, and they are looking for the candidates who think socialism is best. First of all, and this is a whole nother topic for a whole nother day, probably with Penna Dexter in studio, where have we failed in the system of public education that kids think, well, everybody should get everything free?
Yes.
When you say, well, okay, you've got 10 video games. Well, then you need to give 9 of those video games away. Well, no, but I worked for those, or I got that as a present. Well, that's socialism. And it's like we have to get down to the very basics of what matters to them, because unfortunately, these are the same generation, people of the same generation, who are grabbing their information off of Twitter. So 140 characters in a tweet is how they are determining what they think about socialism. And what you said, I think, was during a break or right before the break, go spend a week in Venezuela. And then come back and tell me how bad America is.
And what's so interesting is that one of the socialists who is running for the presidency, Bernie Sanders, always says, well, look at Sweden. Well, I the other day did a commentary in which a historian in Sweden said, first of all, we're not socialist. In a few areas, we may be more free market than the United States.
And that's true.
And when we were socialist, we almost destroyed the country. So stop using us as an example.
Please don't bring us up again, Vern.
But you also have the kind of the fair-haired socialist now, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Oh, and she makes me insane. For any of those of you who know who Harry Potter is, she who shall not be named is what I say on the radio show, because she makes me crazy. But again, she's one of those who has pushed this out there. Everybody thinks she's the end all be all. And then I look back and I go, my gosh, how did the public school system fail her, and college? Because apparently she was an economics major, but she doesn't understand the basics of everybody can't get everything for free.
Right.
And let's talk about her footprint a little bit. She was even in a parade not too long ago. Halfway through the parade, her staff picked her up in some big old fancy town car and took her to the end of the parade route. And I'm like, wait a second. Now, isn't that a little elitist? So, I mean, it's scary, but a Gallup poll found that 51% of 18 to 29-year-old Americans view socialism favorably. And that was back in 2018. We should be scared to death because these are the same people that if they remember and if social media reminds them, which it will, they'll be getting out and voting in this upcoming presidential election. And the dynamics of our country could be changed if we're not paying attention. And you have knowledge is power in this situation. That's why I think these books you have, I think this Bible looks amazing. Your show is such a great vehicle in a friendly manner to get good talking points out to those of us who need them.
And one of the things we try to do is even tomorrow we have our Millennial Roundtable. I'll be the host, but Nick Pitts will be here and a lot of our guests. And because we recognize that we need to educate another generation. You and I are old enough to remember that when you said socialism, people thought communism, they thought Russia, they thought China. It's amazing how you can still see what's going on in China right now, Venezuela and Cuba, and not get the point.
Right.
But they don't remember the Berlin Wall and things like that. So there's a real need for new education. And so we have really wanted to develop that through a variety of different venues. We have videos right now that are available. And so that is one called The Korean Lights. And that is a video that actually comes from Wayne Grudem, where he says, if you look at North Korea and South Korea from a satellite, North Korea is dark.
Right.
Because there's no economic development.
Right.
But it's also dark because there's no spirituality. It's dark because there's no freedom.
Absolutely.
And he uses this illustration between North Korea and South Korea, which are basically one country that got split.
Right.
You can see visually that. So there's a video that you can send to young people. You can send these booklets to them. You can use these arguments. We're developing some apps and all sorts of things so that we can educate them. So people sometimes say, well, if I support point of view, is it just the 3-hour radio program? Yes, and all these other things.
Right.
You ever seen those commercials? And there's more.
And there's this and this. And if you sign up now, so please call now.
Yeah. And that's really what we're encouraging people to do. We're going to be taking a break, and then we're going to go to our national program. And really appreciate you coming in here today.
Thank you for having me. Love hanging out with y'all.
We certainly encourage people to call 800-347-5151. That's the way in which they can participate with us. They can go to the website, which shows the Truth Team, says join the team. And if you say, well, I'd like to see those booklets, I'd like to see the Bible, it's all right there. And it shows you again that a monthly partner receives the Outlook. If you want to join at the $50 a month level, the Liberty Club, you receive, of course, the tumbler, which we've been talking about, the booklets, and, of course, at the Century Club level, they receive all that plus the Bible. So if nothing else, Kathy Ward, you are a great asset to us.
Well, thank you so much.
I do not know how you get up so early in the morning to do a 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. program. Marlon Maddox, who was the original host of this back from 1972, he said, I could never do a morning show, and I'm the same. My voice is not very good. As Andrew will tell you, sometimes when we record a commentary early on, my voice sounds very different than it does right now. So it is amazing that you can be so peppy.
Oh, thank you. I'm blessed to be in this industry and blessed to be able to talk to people who believe the same way I do.
So again, I encourage people to tune you in 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. KBDT 1160 a.m. You know all that.
7 to 9 every morning. CJP and I be part of the crew, and you can catch us on Facebook if you're part of the national show and you're watching this later in the day. Yes, you can be part of the crew on Facebook.
And you can watch it on Facebook, and I watch you, and I just say, how is she so puppy at that hour of the night?
Really good coffee.
Because it's still night for me. There's a 7 a.m. and a 7 p.m., and I do get up at 7 a.m., but not to actually do a show, so you're amazing. Again, go to the website right now. It is the beginning of our Truth Team. We need to hear from you, and we'll be back right after this.
When I turn on the news, there are days I wonder what's happened to our nation. So many things seem to be turned on their head. It makes you wonder, what can be done about it? Then I remember how Jesus talked about the power of truth and how it can set people free. We know the truth, and when it's spoken in love, it has the power to bring healing to our divided world. 2 Timothy reminds us that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Is it possible in our day and age to once again see civil debate, common sense, and national unity? It seems very clear from 2 Timothy that we are to be bold, not fearful, to appreciate God's power to do good, and to demonstrate to the world His truth and love. But to communicate this to a broken world, they need you to join our team. Join the Truth Team. Your monthly support has the power to turn our nation back to real truth. Join the Truth Team today at pointofview.net/team or by calling 1-800-347-5151. That's pointofview.net/team or 1-800-347-5151.
Point of View will continue after this.
I just want to thank you so much for all the wonderful programming you have. You're just absolutely fantastic.
I recently started listening to Point of View, and I really found it interesting because of the different subjects you cover. Thank you for that.
I really appreciate everything that you do in keeping us informed.
Thank you, Kerby, for everything that you have been doing. I appreciate all the work that you're doing, advocating for the Word of God. Thank you so much.
Point of View, I think, is absolutely necessary because it's a Christian perspective, a biblical worldview perspective, and receive very current, up-to-date information about what is really going on, week to week in our culture, which is changing so rapidly, and yet it's morally sliding backwards.
Yeah, I'm just, first of all, I thank you guys. Y'all's program is wonderful, and enjoy it every day. I learn so much every time I listen to it.
Point of View Radio Talk Show.
Hi, this is Kerby Anderson. You know, each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging: apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View starts right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
Thank you for joining me today. We're going to have a really busy week. We've got a lot to cover, and it'll be part of our truth team, as we've been talking about before. I thought for just a minute I might just mention something we talked about on Friday, but it's become even more significant, and that is the historic nature of some of these appointments to the Supreme Court. Senator Lindsey Graham, who is the chairman of the Senate Judiciary the other day, referred to it as a historic milestone. And if you're looking for victories, or winning, as some people like to say, or positive news, this is one of the most significant, because 150 judicial nominees, actually it's more than that now, I think it's up to 152, have been confirmed. And how historic is it? Well, you have 105 that were actually placed on the federal judiciary, 43 to the circuit court, with, of course, 2 Supreme Court justices and more to come. And what this has done is, as we've pointed out, it's flipped a number of courts. One that is already flipped is the Third Circuit Court, where some of you are listening, kind of in the eastern part of the United States. Pretty soon, the 11th Circuit Court, even the Second Circuit Court, will possibly flip. But even in the more liberal court, which would be the Ninth Circuit Court, for those of you living in the western part of the United States, we have seen some remarkable changes there, because recently they handed the president a victory on his immigration policy. So what we are seeing is some significant changes, and all through this week we're going to talk about some of these victories, and that was one that is a kind of easy to quantify victory. But we're also going to share some of the stories, the anecdotes, and others that show how you as an individual can make a difference, and how your support to Point of View will make a difference as well. So this is part of our truth team, and if you go to our website, pointofview.net, you'll see that our theme this week is power, love, and a sound mind. And to help me throughout this week, we have our good friend Brad Fisk, who joins us once again in studio.
Hey, it is so good to be back with you again, and I am really, really excited. I like to talk about winners.
Yes.
I like to talk about people who have convictions, follow through on them, and then have positive results.
And you're from Colorado, so you know the story about Jack Phillips, who is the baker there in Colorado. Case goes all the way to the Supreme Court and rule in his favor. And we also talked recently with Kelly Shackelford about a case that went to Maryland, because we have listeners in Maryland as well, about the not only the Cross case, but how that's changed the way in which these are actually being interpreted. So just a great series of stories that we're going to be sharing all week as part of our truth team. But I think we also might mention that one of the reasons we do this is to encourage you to support this ministry, because as you do so, you will, as the week unfolds, hear the stories of individuals that have made a difference. And in just a few minutes, we're going to be talking to Foster Freeze about the difference he's made with his giving. Next hour, we'll be hearing from Don Blythe about the impact that he has made in the abortion issue. And all through the week, we are going to be highlighting individuals that made a difference, encouraging you to go out and make a difference as well.
So if you want to be encouraged this week, if you would like to be uplifted and say, you know, it's not all bad. There is a lot of stuff going on that is absolutely positive and biblical, and praise the Lord for people with courage and the tenacity to see these things through.
And I might just mention that some people want to say, well, I would like to join with you, but how do we do that? And we now have on our website some of the information. You click on that for Truth Team. And the first thing is you will see that as you click on that, if you are just a monthly giver at any level, you'll receive the Outlook magazine.
That's right.
And there is a good example. I'll just hold that up, show and tell all the way. And that's just one of the most recent issues there. That's the September issue, which you will receive. But I also recognize that some of you could give at a greater level. And one of those is a level at $50 a month. And we make available and have been making available, as you well know, Brad, these booklets.
They're awesome.
And each one comes out each month. There's climate change, capitalism, constitutional interpretation. Some I was just talking about a minute ago, social media, all sorts of examples. And you'll receive at the $50 a month or more level, not only that, but also this attractive point of view tumbler, right?
Yes, that is a Yeti brand.
A Yeti.
Tumbler, which is the best-selling brand in America. And we wanted to get something really quality. And every day as you drink and your hot or cold beverages, you're going to think and pray for Point of View Radio that we will continue to be strong. Continue. How many years? We're like over 4 decades now, right?
Since 1972. So.
Oh, my goodness. Well, we're asking you to give and give generously. So then the phone number, I'm looking for it.
800-347-5151. It's 800-347-5151. We do have people right now ready to take your phone call. But more importantly, we also have a link to the website in case you say, well, I'd like to see those booklets, but something else you're going to want to see, because not only could you give a monthly, whatever you might decide, $50 a month, but for people that could give $100 a month or pledge now is all we're asking for, a pledge of $100 a month or more, you'll receive the Life Essentials Study Bible. Now, the one I have is the older version, but the new one is actually not going to be out till March. So we are making this available to you in a way that you would not be able to obtain it in the actual stores until now. It's put together by our good friend Gene Getz, who's been on the program with us many times. But he's actually identified 1,500 different principles that apply from the Scripture to your life. And that's really what we're all about here at Point of View, taking biblical principles and apply it to life. 1,500 different principles, and that is all in the Bible itself. But we've also found that a lot of our listeners actually have access to a computer or a smartphone. And so if they look at this, there's what's called a QR code.
Right.
And if you hover over that, it pops up a video on that particular principle.
Awesome.
So there's 250 hours of videos that are related to this. And so if you don't have a QR code on your phone, you can get it on the computer. But I've had some people say, well, I don't know all that technology. Well, then find a child, son or daughter or grandson, granddaughter, and they can do this for you, because it's 250 hours of videos that go along with us. And what I found is a lot of people say, well, I love those computer Bibles, but I don't know how to use those. Well, this is a standard Bible that you hold in your hands with all sorts of those biblical principles, but more importantly, it also links you to all those videos as well.
It's just an incredible gift, and it's a thank you, a welcome gift to join that Century Club level. But again, any gift, any amount, welcomed right now. But that monthly gift is especially important to the overall budgeting of what we do every single year to make this work financially. It costs some money to get it done, and you're going to help us do it by giving us a call right now at 800-347-5151. That's a toll-free number, 800-347-5151. It's a 2 to 3 minute phone call. You don't have to have the money on hand right now. As you said a moment ago, it's a pledge for a future gift. Thank you for calling us at 800-347-5151.
And as you go to the website, pointofview.net, if you'd like to see the tumbler, you'd like to see the booklets, you'd like to see the Bible, it's all there as well. And as Brad just pointed out a minute ago, that only takes a couple of minutes at most to fill out. So if you want to go to pointofview.net or give us a call at 800-347-5151, that is the case. And in just a minute, we're going to be talking with our friend Foster Freeze, who actually has used his philanthropy over the years to make a difference. So we'll talk about the hurricane relief in the Bahamas and a number of other issues that he has had front and center. But this is a perfect time as we go to a break, so you won't miss any of the content, to give us a call. 800-347-5151. We have people standing by, so we want to get a couple of phone calls in, and let's do that right before the end of this segment. So let's have you give us a call. We'll be right back.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
Earlier this month, NFL quarterback Drew Brees appeared in a short video to promote Bring Your Bible to School Day. It wouldn't even be worth a mention in most years, but a number of critics slammed him for producing the video since it was a promo video for Focus on the Family. Again, this wouldn't be controversial even a few years ago, but the culture is different now. Social media lit up with claims that Focus on the Family is a religious extremist group and that this organization is anti-LGBTQ. One even argued that it's not right that Drew Brees, who he called a crazed fool, has an NFL job while Colin Kaepernick does not. Fortunately, another commentator suggested Brees has a job in the NFL because he's one of the 5 best QBs to ever play the game and will own nearly every major record by the time he retires. As for the character of Drew Brees, former NFL running back and former teammate Reggie Bush posted this response. He said, anyone who doubts Drew Brees' character or believes bogus headlines about this man does not know him, period. He is a great father, husband, leader, and most of all, true man of God. The drummed-up controversy over Drew Brees' video is merely a minor scuffle in the larger culture war, but it once again reminds us that associating with any organization, including one of the status and positive reputation of Focus on the Family, will invite criticism. Not so long ago, when a celebrity, either an actor, athlete, or civic leader, endorsed an event like See You at the Pole or Bring Your Bible to School Day, the positive publicity enhanced his or her reputation. This latest skirmish will certainly cause many to reconsider whether they want to promote an event that used to be widely praised. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
For a free copy of Kerby's booklet, A Biblical View on Anti-Semitism, go to viewpoints.info/anti-Semitism. Viewpoints.info/anti-Semitism.
Point of View, Truth Team. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, and of love, and of a sound mind.
And that's our theme this week, 2 Timothy 1:7. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And certainly one of the things you can do to understand certainly what we're doing this week is go to our website, pointofview.net. And Brad Fisk with us. And Brad, already one of the individuals went to the website and gave a gift of $2,500.
And they're part of the Century Club we were talking about, getting the Bible and the tumbler, by the way. Both gifts coming your way at that $100 a month level or more. And thank you.
And one of the things we're going to be doing all week, and I might as well set the scene here, is we're going to be talking about individuals that have made a profound impact in the culture. In just a minute, we're going to be talking to our friend Foster Fries, who's used his philanthropy and his ability to address some of these social issues for that. The next hour, we'll be talking about an individual who's made such a profound impact in the pro-life movement. And all through the week, we're going to be talking about those individuals that have made a difference. And what we want to do is equip you through Point of View so that you can make a difference in your community as well.
That's right. It's so important that we work together. You know, it's that unity is huge, and the Bible has a lot to say about us coming together for a common purpose, and that is to take biblical values and insert them into the worldview in all these areas that we talk about in Point of View.
You know, one of the things we talk about is the idea of carrying one another's burdens and thus fulfill the law of Christ.
Yes.
And that comes from Genesis 6:2. And I know that's one of the kind of the verses that was an inspiration for our next guest, Foster Fries, who has been on the program with us many times before. I certainly have valued his insight on civility. We've talked about left, right, forward, march, but also an individual that has used his financial resources to make a difference. And Foster Fries, welcome back to Point of View.
Kirby, you don't know how much I've missed you. I'm glad to be on the show and say hi to Brad. So let's have some fun today.
Let's, if we can, maybe talk about one of the gifts that you've put out, and that is last week we had Vernon Brewer on of World Help talking about what they've been doing to try to reach out to those in the Bahamas. My own church has worked out through Samaritan's Purse to reach out, but you've put a very significant challenge out there for the Bahamas hurricane relief. Talk about that, if you might.
Well, the Green family have been friends of ours for a long time. Water Missions takes the living word with the actual water. So they're a Christian commitment that they take the gospel with the water. And what they do is purify the water. They don't dig wells. They could just take a swamp or a river or pollution, and with their system, they purify the water. So they're on the move now, and the $1 million check should be being sent to them this week. The response was just terrific, and so here's an opportunity to do the most important thing when a crisis hits is water. And FedEx has learned that it's a lot more efficient to ship these units rather than these plastic bottles, because it stays there for a long time and can last for years and serve 3,000-4,000 people.
Yes. And again, I know you've been involved with what's called Clean Water for the World. And so this is a crisis right now in the Bahamas. I mean, it just, as you see some of these pictures, and I know this is radio, so it's hard to show the pictures, but you can, in your mind's eye, imagine what it's like in some of these islands where it's just been flattened. There's just nothing there. And so there is no infrastructure. There are no hospitals. And so there is just an incredible need. And I've always appreciated over the years, whether it was this particular action or the tsunami years ago, you've really felt that there is a way in which you can use your financial resources to make a difference. And I'd love to know a little bit more about the genesis of how that all developed.
Well, I also like to deal with local people. When I first went to tsunami in Sri Lanka, which was the Indonesian tsunami, better known as, but Sri Lanka got hit as well. And the large organizations, they wanted 15-20% override, and it's bureaucratic, and they'd arrive a week later and have a meeting to see what the needs are, whereas the local people responded within hours. And so I've traveled to Sri Lanka. I've traveled to the Moore, Oklahoma tornado, to Katrina, or the terrible thing happened there, and also went to Haiti. So I go there and take my checkbook and find local groups that are on the spot. In the Moore, Oklahoma tornado, there's a Baptist church that's already set up and doing things, and the money got spent directly with no overhead. So I think, I guess the whole thing started just because, God's blessed me with a fair amount of money, and people accuse me of being generous. I said, wait a minute, I'm not generous. It ain't my money. If it's mine, you wouldn't be getting a dead cent.
Well, when you mentioned the Greens, too, I've had 3 generations of Greens in studio here, all the way from David all the way down to his granddaughter, who actually joins us for the Millennial Roundtable. And there is another generous family, really, which is very impressive when you see 3 generations,
right.
David Green, Steve Green, and then, of course, his daughter, who's been here as well, who's actually a McAfee. But again, this is, I think, the idea that many people fail to understand, that your gift of any amount can make a difference in this radio program. It can make a difference in your community. Even if you don't have a lot of money to give, just the sweat equity. I really wanted to kind of feature that, because a lot of people sort of sit around and say, what can I do? Well, actually, Brad, there's a lot they can do.
I'm impressed, Foster, that you actually go into the areas of need and with your own eyes as an eyewitness see what's going on. And I bet that allows you to give very strategically and be very careful about where your gift goes. And that's very impressive, sir, and I'm very blessed that you do that.
Well, I do like to be sensitive to where God's money goes. I do, take the biblical worldview that I'm not an owner of all these resources. I'm just a steward. And the Green family, incidentally, is the Green family of water missions. It's George Green 4 and George Green 3, not to be confused with the Hobby
Different
Lobby.
Green. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're out in the Carolinas where they operate from and provide the machines. So I'm excited about being able to see firsthand what the needs are.
One of the other things I certainly wanted to talk to you about, and we may even get to some of this after the break, is, of course, you run for political office, and we are in the midst of a campaign. And just the other day, I held up this little booklet on capitalism and socialism. And, Brad, you know what I'm thinking, is that the younger generation doesn't understand that we have to be able to pay for these kinds of things. And one of the issues I remember when you ran for office was this issue of transparency. And we've talked with you in the past about transparency in the healthcare field, but you were just even asking for transparency in the field of government. That just seems to be one of those kind of basic common sense ideas, but apparently that eludes a few people in political office, doesn't it?
Well, we were excited that the campaign for governors wound up that transparency now is strong in Wyoming. It was one of 3 states that did not reveal the state checkbook to the taxpayers, and so that's now happening. And we also were delighted that through the campaign, we started with 1% obscurity, except for the state in which I live. And in 4 months, the campaign that was put together wound up winning more Republican votes than any of the other candidates. However, in Wyoming, the Democrats and Independents were allowed to come over, out of their party, and be able to vote. So the 10,000 votes put me in second place. But what that meant is now I can maybe be more effective, and God has a way of allowing me to focus on the 4 or 5 things that are really important, like rachelschallenge.org, transparency, healthcare reform, and I don't have to worry about the irrigation ditch that collapsed.
Matter of fact, when we come back from the break, I want to talk about Rachel's Challenge, because I was with you when you were actually talking about that, and I've been following it ever since. But, Brad, just before we take a break, we have some people waiting to receive some phone calls. So let's talk about that.
We do, and we're asking our friends to give us a call at 1-800-347-5151, 800-347-5151. This is Truth Team Week. 2 weeks a year we do this little thing where we kind of set aside some time to let you know that you can be a part in helping this ministry do its job even better than it's doing it now, and getting the worldview with a biblical Christian worldview into every single part of our society.
Hope you'll join us at the Liberty Club level. That's $50 a month. That way you receive this tumbler, you receive these booklets, which we'll talk about in just a minute, and of course you'll receive the Outlook magazine.
That's right.
So you can go to pointofview.net. But Brad, I see some people ready to, as a matter of fact, we have 5 open lines they just told us. So that's 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151. If you're not familiar with Rachel's Challenge, we'll talk about that and a few other projects that Foster Freeze has been involved with, so we'll talk about that right after the break.
Okay, here's the phone number to get that. Remember, that tumbler is a Yeti tumbler. That's top of the line right there, 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151, or you can go to
pointofview.net. We'll be right back.
When I turn on the news, there are days I wonder what's happened to our nation. So many things seem to be turned on their head. It makes you wonder, what can be done about it? Then I remember how Jesus talked about the power of truth and how it can set people free. We know the truth, and when it's spoken in love, it has the power to bring healing to our divided world. 2 Timothy reminds us that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Is it possible in our day and age to once again see civil debate, common sense, and national unity? It seems very clear from 2 Timothy that we are to be bold, not fearful, to appreciate God's power to do good, and to demonstrate to the world His truth and love. But to communicate this to a broken world, they need you to join our team. Join the Truth Team. Your monthly support has the power to turn our nation back to real truth. Join the Truth Team today at pointofview.net/team or by calling 1-800 1-800-347-5151. That's pointofview.net/team or 1-800-347-5151.
Point of View will continue after this.
You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kerby Anderson.
Truth Team Weekend. This is an opportunity for you to participate with us. 1-800-347-5151. And again, we're talking about power, love, and a sound mind, 2 Timothy 1:7. And we are privileged to have with us for just a little bit longer Foster Freeze. And Foster, first of all, you mentioned Rachel's challenge. I wanted to focus on that for just a minute. It's, of course, the story of Rachel Scott and the incredible work that her father, Daryl Scott, has done. Last time I looked, about 1.5 million children around the country, students have participated in this, and you have certainly spent time and effort with them. And because of you, I've gotten more interested in what Rachel's Challenge is all about. But for people that are not familiar, can you share a little bit more about that?
Well, because Rachel Scott was the first victim in Columbine, she had a message. Before she died, she was an extremely loving and kind person. At her funeral, a young man who's quite disfigured from some ailment, cerebral palsy or whatever, and hard to understand his speech, said, "She saved my life because I was ready to end it, and she surrounded me with friends and love." She would do that when a new girl comes to school where there's a tendency to isolate the new person. She would surround them with attention and love. So the message from Rachel's Challenge is, instead of telling people what they shouldn't do, don't bully, don't use drugs, it tells them what they can do, and that is create a chain reaction of kindness, and in this process positively impact the life of another human being. Every place that we've helped sponsor it, we've gotten letters not only from the principal, but from unsolicited 8 or 9 students who said this was powerful. And so this changes the culture from one of the me generation to school safety. The bullying stops, the drugs stop, and this notion about gun control is sort of silly. What good would it do to get more background checks when most of these guns, I'd love to have someone do a study, were gotten through someone else. I think at Columbine, the 16 and 17-year-olds had a 21-year-old buy the gun for him. The San Bernardino killer had someone get the gun for him. So the question of stopping the school shootings isn't dealing with, are they going to use a gun, a knife, a bomb, acid, a car to kill people, but how do we isolate those troubled kids? And I'm told, and I bet the study would also show that most of them are probably fatherless. Nicholas Cruz, the Parkland shooter, certainly was an isolated young man, and there's a dossier inches thick. Everybody knew he was a troubled young man. So the solution is, one, Rachel Challenge, and two, this is not happening. But I would think that the football coach, the teachers, all the people in a school know who the troubled kids are. They can see them like a red flashing light. And so the trick is get some of the macho guys in the school to surround them and with love, take them on a fishing trip, take them to a ball game, and say, hey, you are important. And so I think that's what we have to approach it with, dealing with the perpetrator, not with the weapon of choice.
And again, I just think it's such an outstanding program. And again, I appreciate you taking the lead on that. You've had various challenge gifts and encourage people to learn more about that. And certainly I appreciate the fact that, once again, just to illustrate the point, Brad, that an individual can make a difference. He's been able to highlight Rachel's Challenge. I appreciate the incredible work that Daryl Scott has done all these years in that regard, and just a good example of that.
You know, Foster, you're gifted in the area of stewardship, and I was thinking there could be listeners listening right now that don't really understand the word stewardship. Could you give us a simple definition of that?
Well, just simple, our very lives, our health, our families, we don't own it. We didn't create it. God did and gave it to us. So our job isn't to think, hey, this is mine and you can't have it. But instead, this is God's gift to us. The resources that he's given me, not only in dollars, but the contacts he's given me in the various groups I belong to. And I think we have to acknowledge he's made an investment in us, and he deserves a return on investment. So how can we acknowledge and appreciate his gift to us so that we can magnify other people's lives and be a blessing?
And again, I think sometimes people just sit back and say, there's nothing I can do. They see these social problems unfold. They see young people committing suicide and these so-called deaths of despair because the suicide rate has increased dramatically, or the opioid overdoses has increased dramatically. And Rachel's Challenge is a good example. Or they see this incredible crisis in the Bahamas and say, what can I do? But first of all, I say it's a pronoun problem. What can we do? If we join together, Brad, with all sorts of other individuals, we can make a real difference in these communities. And even if you don't have a lot of money to share, and some are very blessed individuals over the years that have been able to share their financial resources, you can spend time and and energy and resources to make a difference in the community. And that's really what we're called to be, the salt of the earth and the light of the world.
And it kind of leads me to Truth Team. It's a week of coming alongside Point of View and saying, you know what, I really do believe what you guys are doing has a lot of validity for the kingdom with eternal value. And it does. Every single day we are here bringing the issues that you're not going to hear anywhere else, right here in Point of View. And you can be a part of the Truth Team at 800-347-5151.
Foster, I'd love to have you just maybe challenge some of our listeners to join with us, because as you well know, one of the things we like to do is twice a year come to individuals, tell them that they can participate. And again, I know they don't give to get, but we are providing everything from a very fancy Bible for the people that give at a very large level, or the Yeti tumbler or booklets, or
Tumbler's so cool.
all sorts of resources. But for any kind of monthly gift, of course, they receive the Outlook magazine.
Yes.
What would you say to our listeners before we let you go?
Well, Kerby, do you reveal to people what your annual budget is, or how much you want to raise on this effort? Is there a number out there that you're kind of shooting for, a goal or anything, or do you keep that private?
Well, we just, try to raise enough to keep the doors open. And I think it's less than $1 million, isn't it? I think that's what we've been saying. Yeah. And so it's a very frugal amount given the kind of exposure we have in 42 different states and 263 stations.
And we have no debt, so we don't ever operate that way. And we kind of spend it as it comes in. And but yeah, it's a shade under $1 million, I think, over in general terms.
Sure.
Well, I just admire so much what you do to keep people tuned in to the opportunities we have to change the world. And some people without money devote an enormous amount of their energies and time to be a Boy Scout leader or to lead a mentoring group. So, I would love to challenge. How long will your campaign go? Another 2 days or so?
It'll go from Monday through Friday.
Okay, well, anything that comes in through Friday, I'd love to double up to $50,000 if that'll help incent some people to send some checks in.
Brad is excited. Yes, thank you.
so is Kerby. He's got a smile on his face, too.
Yeah, thank you. I was speechless, so that's why I said you were excited. Oh, well, thank you. That would be a great challenge gift. And again, as we just mentioned a minute ago, we've got, I guess it's, again, about 5 lines open right now, so people can call, and they would now have their match. The match will actually double, right?
That's correct.
Yes.
It'll double. As you give that gift of $50 a month, it becomes $100 a month to us. Thank you, Foster, for that. 800-347-5151. That's toll free, 800-347-5151. You can give this securely online at pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net.
I might just mention, too, that, Foster, I'd love to have you back when we find out a little bit more about the impact of the Bahamas hurricane relief. We have an article that we've posted on the website, and I'd love to just kind of be able to tell some success stories there, because really all this week we're going to be talking about success stories, but this one is going to have to take place over a long period of time because of some of that devastation. So it is always just encouraging to me to read about various challenges you put out there to help individuals see their way in which they can make a difference in their community. And we want to thank you for being such a great, shining example of that in your own community.
Well, Kerby, everybody says I'm such a nice guy. I got to do something to justify it.
Well, if nothing else, I want to certainly call upon you occasionally here when we go through this campaign, because we are hearing some of the most bizarre things being said. And since you've run as a candidate, maybe you can give us some behind-the-scenes perspective on that as well. So thank you so very much for the $50,000 matching pledge.
Up till Friday.
It means a lot that you would make that available. And thank you for joining us today here on Point of View.
Well, you guys are my heroes, and without you, we'd be less successful. So make sure you keep it up. You're doing a great job.
Well, I can see a difference. I'm looking right now, and all of a sudden the phones are ringing. So Foster Freeze, as always, made the phones ring. So all of a sudden now this is a big amount, too, $50,000.
It's awesome. It's wonderful. There's so much that can be done with that. Oh, yes. It's exciting.
What a nice gift, and what a great pledge. So if you've been waiting for a match, it is on the table now. Right. And it will take a couple of days, I suspect, to actually reach it. But we'll give you an update as we go along. But let's first of all mention that if you've been waiting, Don't wait any longer. 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151. More importantly, if you get a busy signal, you can simply go to pointofview.net and make your gift there. We'll talk more about what that means right after these important messages.
Point of View Truth Team. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, and of love, and of a sound mind.
2 Timothy 1:7, and that is kind of our theme verse this week. It is Truth Team, and we just put a match on the table by Foster Freeze, $50,000. That's going to take a while. And so your phone call right now is essential, 1-800-347-5151, or you can simply go to the website pointofview.net. Let's hear what some of our listeners have said about how Point of View has made such a difference in their lives.
Point of View Truth Team.
Thank you for your program. I am a team member, and you have opened my eyes to the truth.
You have a wonderful program. I just want to thank you for being there. It's great.
I just wanted to call in and express my gratitude for the awesome work that you guys have done. I've been listening for about 6 months now, and it's just been something I can hardly miss. Thank you for giving me my daily dose of truth with a biblical worldview. I'd just like to encourage anyone listening that's inspired by Point of View to give what they can. I'm a California millennial and Christian, and I now can say I support Point of View.
Thank you. First of all, let me say I listen to y'all's show every day as much as I'm able, and I really appreciate the topics and conversation that y'all bring to the fore.
I listen to y'all's show a great deal, and I really appreciate what you guys do.
Point of View Truth Team.
Let me just mention that if you join the Truth Team Liberty Club, that's for $50 a month or more, you'll receive this Yeti tumbler, as well as these booklets, and I'm holding some of those up right now for those of you happen to watch online. And, of course, you receive the Outlook magazine, and so this is just a great opportunity for us to give you some great information every single month. The booklets, as you well know, Brad, which we've been doing now for more than a year, are intended to be read in about 10 minutes. If you could spend just 10 minutes with me, and I can tell you what I think is the most important articles, our arguments, resources, those are the case.
We've even passed ours along to children and others who had a particular topic that came up, one of the booklets, who said, hey, I got something for you. Hold on a minute.
Yeah. And so that's the case. And of course, the Yeti tumbler is something that helps keep hot or cold beverages for several hours. And so, again, that is available. And again, if your gift of $50 a month all of a sudden now becomes $100 a month.
That's correct. Every dollar given up to $50,000 is going to be matched dollar for dollar. And it only happens when you call and give that we get there together, working together at 800-347-5151. That's 800-347-5151. Maybe every line could get lit up right now with
I would sure
gift.
hope so.
Yep.
Because, again, next hour we're going to be getting into a whole different set of conversations about pro-life and what you can do to advance the culture of life against a culture of death. So that is certainly the case. And let me just mention that I have picked up a few radio stations in this last year. We have picked them up. And so you may be hearing for us on the first time, or maybe the station's been carrying it for decades, for all you know, but you just have tuned in and say, I don't even know all about this point of view thing, but I've really been learning quite a bit. But one of the things we want to encourage you to do is to support this ministry as well, because we're listener supported. You may hear in your local radio station a commercial that helps the radio station, or even various other outreaches that help that radio station, but we are dependent upon your gifts. And so if you've never given before, your gift today will help connect you to the point of view message and help you actually be educated and prepared to make the kind of difference that some of these individuals we'll be talking about this week have been able to make in their own communities.
That's right. And again, really pray about that Liberty Club level. That's only $600 for the whole year, Kerby, and it'll become $1,200 with the match. So what an incredible opportunity to give that monthly amount. And again, you don't have to have the money in hand right now, and we're just going to write down your pledge and ask that you fulfill it in the next year. But again, give us a call. The phone number to call is 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151. The welcome mat is out, especially you new donors who've never given before. Give us a call and join the team, won't you?
And I notice a lot of people on the phones, and of course we still have people that can answer the phone, even though there are quite a number that are taking the calls because of this match. But also I know some of you would just say, I would just as easily like to go online, and you can do that. The advantage of going online is, first of all, it can happen very quickly. Second of all, you can see the tumbler, you can see some of the booklets, you can see the Bible, because at the Century Club level, we're making available the Life Essentials Study Bible, and I'll talk more about that in the next hour once again, but it's something else that is available. Some of you might say, well, I can give $50 a month, but I might be able to give $100 a month. This is another thank you gift we want to put in your hands. We'll talk more about that in just a few minutes.
Keep listening throughout the week, because we've got lots of reasons why we're asking you to give, because we continue in our world culture here. I don't feel like we're going forward all the time, but there are victories we're going to be talking about this week, but there's still people who need our message. We have a culture that needs our message.
And again, some of those victories we just talked about, even at the first hour here, the number of appointments to the federal courts, looking at the various texts of the Constitution, trying to interpret the Constitution with its original intent rather than reading into it the things you believe. We've seen some incredible victories at the Supreme Court, which we'll talk about a little bit more the next hour. And those are things that we hear about from people like Kelly Shackelford or Penna Dexter and others. And so people people say, well, what am I supporting? The 3-hour radio program? Yes. But you're also supporting everything else. We have a video there right now when we talk about socialism and capitalism. We talk about the Korean Lights. My Viewpoints commentary today is talking about Bring Your Bible. I'll talk more about that in just a minute because it has to do with an individual that was actually criticized for producing a video for Focus on the Family, Drew Brees, who, by the way, hurt his hand yesterday. We'll talk more about that later. And so there are just all sorts of resources that we're putting in your hands so that you will be equipped to make a difference in your community.
And you can become a part of the Truth Team, a part of Point of View at 800-347-5151. I got an idea, Kerby. Let's get every single line going.
That would be
blitz
terrific.
out the phones
That would
as
be
we're
terrific.
coming up on a break in a few minutes. 800-347-5151. Your $10 becomes $20. Your $50 a month, guess what? That becomes $100 a month to the total because of that matching gift. And so it's 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. And you always can give at pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net.
Let's again encourage you to join with us at whatever level you might consider. Some of you might say, well, I really could only maybe give a certain amount each month, and that's fine. You'll receive the Outlook
That's
magazine.
right.
But I do want to challenge some of you to consider $50 a month. It seems like a lot if I were to ask for $600, but $50 a month, you probably can come up with that. And that's where we can put, as those of you watching online, these booklets in your hand, this tumbler in your hand, as well as the Outlook magazine. And, of course, even at the $100 level, we add to that the Life Essentials Study Bible. So you can find out more by going to the website and actually see what those are. Sometimes people like to see what that might be. And most importantly, you're actually advancing this ministry and helping you not only to be educated about these issues, but the education of other individuals listening to this as well.
Think about your children.
Yes.
Think about your grandchildren.
That's right.
What kind of a life, what kind of a culture are they going to be walking into someday? You can help determine that it be a biblically driven culture by giving your gift right now. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151.
And we're coming to a break, so this is a perfect time to call right now.
It is.
We have a number of minutes before we're back on the air, so let me encourage you to make sure that we light up every one of
lines
those. And so it's a time for you to call. $50,000 match on the table. There's room for you, so give us a call, 800-347-5151. We'll be right back.
When I turn on the news, there are days I wonder what's happened to our nation. So many things seem to be turned on their head. It makes you wonder, what can be done about it? Then I remember how Jesus talked about the power of truth and how it can set people free. We know the truth, and when it's spoken in love, it has the power to bring healing to our divided world. 2 Timothy reminds us that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Is it possible in our day and age to once again see civil debate, common sense, and national unity? It seems very clear from 2 Timothy that we are to be bold, not fearful, to appreciate God's power to do good, and to demonstrate to the world His truth and love. But to communicate this to a broken world, they need you to join our team. Join the Truth Team. Your monthly support has the power to turn our nation back to real truth. Join the Truth Team today at pointofview.net/team or by calling 1-800-347-5151. That's pointofview.net/team or 1-800-347-5151.
Point of View will continue after this.
I just want to thank you so much for all the wonderful programming you have. You're just absolutely fantastic.
I recently started listening to Point of View, and I really found it interesting because of the different subjects you cover. Thank you for that.
I really appreciate everything that you do in keeping us informed.
Thank you, Kerby, for everything that you have been doing. I appreciate all the work that you're doing, advocating for the Word of God. Thank you so much.
Point of View, I think, is absolutely necessary because it's a Christian perspective, a biblical worldview perspective, and receive very current, up-to-date information about what is really going on, week to week in our culture, which is changing so rapidly, and yet it's morally sliding backwards.
Yeah, I'm just, first of all, I thank you guys. Y'all's program is wonderful, and enjoy it every day. I learn so much every time I listen to it.
Point of View Radio Talk Show.
Hi, this is Kerby Anderson. You know, each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging: apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View continues right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
Truth Team Week, and this is an opportunity for you to join with us. And right off the bat, we had a chance to talk with Foster Freeze, and as he was winding down the conversation with us, put a $50,000 match on the table.
Whoa,
Now,
wait. How much?
$50,000. That's a lot.
$50,000. That's a lot of zeros. Awesome. Thank you
to
that.
Zeros. And,
wow, that's awesome.
And so let's just talk about that for a minute. Brad Fisk with us, if you just happen to be joining us, and this is our Course Truth Team Week. And first of all, Warren Kelly was just reminding me that we only have until Friday to meet this challenge. Right. I knew that, but it was just a good reminder that we have to get this done pretty quickly. And
incrementally.
And so let's maybe start with the $10,000 at the moment, just to see if we could break it out each day. I don't know how else to do this. But again, it has a time limit. And of course, I've loved working with Foster Freeze over the years, and he's occasionally done these. And when he does, of course, he expects that we will be able to document how much came in. So that means that every one of your gifts, say you want to join with us at the Liberty Club level, that's $50 a month, but again, all $600 counts towards the match.
That's right. So it would be $600 becomes $1,200. A single gift of $5 becomes $10.
Yes.
I mean, that's the way it works.
So again, that's what we're going to have have in front of us now over these next few days. And of course, in just a few minutes, we're going to be talking about the outreach to the pro-life community and the outreach to those who are convinced that abortion is their only answer. But before we do that, let's just again talk about how people can participate with us. You can give us a call, and right now we have some people ready to take some more phone calls. One or two on the line, but I see some people just standing around waiting for the calls to come in. So that's 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151. Or you can go to the website, pointofview.net, and this is an opportunity for you to now see your gift doubled. $100 a month becomes $200 a month. $50 a month becomes $100 a month. $100 a month becomes $200 a month.
That's
if
the way
you
it
want
works.
to join us at that level, the Century Club level. So we have those resources and those particular pieces of information on our website.
So my understanding is, in a very simple term, is our goal this hour is to have $10,000 donated
about
to
all
chip
we can
away.
do.
So
Yeah.
$10,000 before the top of the hour. And, we bring you the news headlines, and we put our spin on it, not in a bad way, but in an interpretive way. Like, give me one headline right now. I'm going to put you on the spot. We haven't talked about this. Give me a current headline, something that's really moving, news that's changing, and what would you say about it?
What we're seeing right now is, as we mentioned earlier, this whole issue of the interpretation of the Constitution. And one of the new headlines is it possible now that because of the Supreme Court decision on the Cross case, that this would then resolve some of the other cases? And that's exactly what has happened.
Wow.
We have in Lehigh County, which is in Pennsylvania, a seal that has a cross on it. Well, our friends, and I put this in quotes, with the Freedom from Religion Foundation say, no, you can't have a cross on the seal of the county. And the judges looked at that and said, no, wait a minute. The Supreme Court just ruled that you could have a cross and actually a physical cross, so there's no problem with a cross on this seal.
Right.
So here you're seeing it's like a row of dominoes. The dominoes were dropping the wrong way. Now they're starting to drop the right way. And so the court simply said, end of discussion, Freedom from Religion Foundation, you lose, because we already have a Supreme Court precedent now that says that you can have a cross on a seal, and all sorts of other decisions are starting to go the other way. And that's called winning, right?
I love that.
We talked about winning.
That's a victory.
That's kind of a victory. And, we can talk about, you're from Colorado, so you know Jack Phillips and the baker there and winning there. Today, one of the headlines, back to one more, that real quickly, Baronelle Stutzman is saying, we want the Supreme Court to rule on this case. She was the florist in the state of Washington. And she says, in light of this decision that's come down of Jack Phillips, we want the Supreme Court to rule in our favor. So that's the headline today. We're seeing her at a press conference saying, Supreme Court, take this.
Yep.
These are a lot of victories. And Kelly Shackelford has said before that this may be the first time since the 1920s that we've actually had a majority of the justices on the Supreme Court that are looking at the Constitution from the idea of its original intent. And that gets back to one of these little booklets that I've made available too, because it's on constitutional interpretation. So these are just some attempts to help people understand that when we look at things in the news, we try to give you the bigger context, and we also try to help you understand what it means biblically.
And we're simply asking you during this week, Truth Team Week, to give, and you can hear more headlines, and you can hear more victories and hear about that. As a matter of fact, we've got several things lined up this week during Truth Team along that same line. Let me say thank you to an individual who gave a $500 single gift during the match, and guess what? That becomes $1,000 to the total. It's so simple. Somebody else gave a $25 single gift, very first time, for a brand new listener, brand new giver, and that $25 becomes $50.
Let's, if we can, just hear what some of our listeners want to encourage you to do to give to Point of View.
Point of View Truth Team.
Point of View is a part of my daily life, and I know of no other radio program that helps its listeners to develop, articulate, and then defend a biblical worldview as successfully as yours does. For those reasons, I consider it an honor to be able to support Point of View financially, and I would encourage all of your listeners, both young and old, to prayerfully consider doing the same.
I just turned your program on, and I want to just let you know I was working in an abortion clinic when abortion first became legal, and I thought I was helping women. And the Lord showed me in a very powerful way, as He removed the veil from me, what exactly I'd been involved in. And I am proof of forgiveness. And I want to just let you know how much I appreciate just getting the truth out.
I really appreciate your program. I don't get to listen to it every day because I have to work, but it's really a blessing to me and to all of us.
You know, my husband and I take so many extra precautions to guard our children, and it is a huge effort on the part of Christian parents to do that. I wanted to thank y'all for everything you do each day to inform Christian families and our community about the things we can do, and just the way you're so informative. I listen to you daily and love you guys and appreciate you so much.
I just appreciate all you guys do. I mean, I learned so much, and it's amazing what you teach that I say to other people, and they look at me like, where did you hear that? So I appreciate you guys. So thank you for all you do.
Point of View Truth Team.
So again, one of the individuals said they used to work in an abortion clinic and left that. It reminds me of the book and the movie Unplanned.
Yes.
And we're going to be talking with Don Blythe in just a minute about the work that he has done all these years in the pro-life movement. But we are going to a break, and this is a perfect time to give us a call. You don't want to miss some of the conversations going to take place in a few minutes. So if you have not joined with us, and I can tell that most of our listeners probably have not, since we only have a few phone calls coming in so far, give us a call right now. That is 800-347-5151. All of your gifts are matched from now on.
800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. Or you can do it really quickly in a couple minutes at pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net.
There's a time limit, so help us out and give us a call right now. We'll be back right after this.
$10,000. That's what we're looking for. Come on, let's go to the phones. Yeah!
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
Earlier this month, NFL quarterback Drew Brees appeared in a short video to promote Bring Your Bible to School Day. It wouldn't even be worth a mention in most years, but a number of critics slammed him for producing the video since it was a promo video for Focus on the Family. Again, this wouldn't be controversial even a few years ago, but the culture is different now. Social media lit up with claims that Focus on the Family is a religious extremist group and that this organization is anti-LGBTQ. One even argued that it's not right that Drew Brees, who he called a crazed fool, has an NFL job while Colin Kaepernick does not. Fortunately, another commentator suggested Brees has a job in the NFL because he's one of the 5 best QBs to ever play the game and will own nearly every major record by the time he retires. As for the character of Drew Brees, former NFL running back and former teammate Reggie Bush posted this response. He said, "Anyone who doubts Drew Brees' character or believes bogus headlines about this man does not know him, period. He is a great father, husband, leader, and most of all, true man of God." The drummed-up controversy over Drew Brees' video is merely a minor scuffle in the larger culture war, but it once again reminds us that associating with any organization, including one of the status and positive reputation of Focus on the Family, will invite criticism. Not so long ago, when a celebrity, either an actor, athlete, or civic leader, endorsed an event like See You at the Poll or Bring Your Bible to School Day, the positive publicity enhanced his or her reputation. This latest skirmish will certainly cause many to reconsider whether they want to promote an event that used to be widely praised. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
For a free copy of Kerby's booklet, A Biblical View on Anti-Semitism, go to viewpoints.info/antisemitism. Viewpoints.info/antisemitism.
Point of View, Truth Team. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, and of love, and of a sound mind.
Back once again, we have in studio with me Brad Fisk, and in just a few minutes we'll hope to connect up with Don Blythe. I haven't heard from him yet, and so I also want to give some of you a chance. If you would like to share some story about how Point of View has impacted you, might be able to get you on the air. 1-800-351-1212 is the on-air line. You know that one is the call line many times, 800-351-1212. So that is an opportunity for you to maybe share as well. And one of the questions that I want to put on the table for just a minute is this $50,000 match. We really would like to get that done even before Friday, because I'm aware, and I did just get it confirmed, Brad, as you just heard, that there's another person thinking about putting in a match, but they're like, okay, if you're not even going to be able to make this one, I'm not going to put my match on the table, right?
So all of a sudden, your gift today actually clears the decks for additional gifts and then the rest of the week. And we are $8,075 away from that incremental goal of $10,000 today before the top of this hour. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151.
You know, one of the things we're talking about all through the week are individuals that have been influenced by Point of View, or in some cases just simply went out and made an impact. And the idea is whether they've been learning from Point of View or they've learned from other sources, they're making a difference in the culture. But I would be remiss if, at least on a Monday, I didn't go back to our good friend Michelle Bachmann, who depended a lot on Point of View to learn some of the things that she applied as she ran for Congress and even for the presidency.
It's such an honor to be on Point of View. It's from the time I was a brand new bride 32 years ago. I've listened to the Point of View radio show. It's a trusted news source, but what it gives more than anything is the real news that all of us need, and that's the gospel of Jesus Christ. You are faithful to treasure the gospel and faithfully hand it to the next generation. That's something that Point of View does.
And again, started listening to Point of View at the age of 19.
That's amazing.
And Penna Dexter and I love to tell the story about the fact that we were interviewing this homemaker by the name of Michelle Bachmann, who is really concerned about education. And then last time she was on the program with us live, actually shared the story of how she went to one of these caucus meetings, because they actually use caucuses to put people on the ballot. And all of a sudden, she, out of nowhere, was put forward as somebody should run. And so all of a sudden finds herself running for office. And there was a little bit of conflict between her and her husband at that point. He didn't know that was going to be taking place.
Yeah.
Then, of course, is in the state legislature, then in Congress, and even ran for the presidency. And so that is just one individual. You probably have your own story. We'd love to hear it. And if you want to even send an email about that story, about how that has made a difference in your life, we'd love to hear from you. But this is really kind of the theme that runs through the week. We're going to highlight different individuals, some of whom actually benefited from Point of View, others who just from other news sources or other books or resources were able to make a profound difference. And we want you to see that you can do the same thing, whether it's your gifts, like we heard from Foster Freeze, or whether it's as we'll talk about with our guests in just a minute, getting involved in the pro-life movement. You can make a difference. And we're supposed to be the salt of the earth and the light of the world, so let's go out there and make a difference.
You know, there's a caller line. We just gave you a minute ago. If you'd like to call in with your story, it's 800-351-1212. That's 800-351-1212 if you have a story. Now, Kerby, I have a question for you about the whole abortion area. Is not the sense I'm getting is abortions, the number of abortions is going down.
That is true.
The influence and funding of abortion clinics is going down.
Yes.
So talk to me a little bit, talk to all of us a little bit about what's going on in the abortion industry.
And the reason I can answer this only so well is this weekend I spoke at Pro-Life 101, which was the Council for Life. And so, first of all, the number of abortions is indeed declining for a variety of different reasons we can get to. Funding is going down because, interesting enough, Planned Parenthood, well, unfortunately still, some of our tax dollars go to Planned Parenthood, but less go because they decided that they would not go along with the Title X funding. So funding for abortions from our tax dollars is going down. The number of abortions is going down. And the bigger issue, which gets us back to the Supreme Court, is that there are a number of these laws that have been passed in various states. There's about a dozen states that have had some kind of law. It could be a heartbeat bill, which has passed a couple of legislatures and then were struck down, or pain-capable unborn child bills, or a variety of others. Now, you might say, what would be the point in passing these bills knowing that they will be struck down by the federal courts? Because it sends a signal, I believe, to the Supreme Court that says this is important. We want Roe versus Wade overturned. Now, just think that if the only bills we were passing were ones that required an abortionist to have some kind of admitting procedures in a local hospital, that wouldn't be sending the signal to the Supreme Court that we want to overturn Roe versus Wade. So that's why these bills, sometimes which are called draconian, which they really aren't, are certainly so important. And one more point that I thought I might make, and this is something I made yesterday or the other day when I was speaking to a very young audience. The younger you are, the more likely you are to be pro-life. Which is really striking because I think Planned Parenthood, National Abortion Rights League, and others were convinced that after you had a generation growing up with abortion always legal, that they would always be supporting the so-called woman's right to choose. But something very interesting has happened. First of all, we have sonograms, we have ultrasounds. And so as a result, what you have going on is it's like a window to the womb. And so this generation growing up seeing these pictures in Discovery Channel and a variety of other places say, that looks like a human being in there. That's not just a piece of conception. Number two, you can appreciate this. pro-lifers tend to have a lot more children. You would know this, right? Having had a lot of children yourself and a homeschooler and all the rest. And you're more likely to be aborted in a pro-choice home than in a pro-life home. So we have a lot more kids that have grown up in pro-life homes. They have pro-life ideas. And so that's why the younger you are, the more likely you are to be pro-life.
Let me make an obvious critical connection here. As you're talking about abortion, I have goosebumps right now because 20, 30 years ago, I can still remember it wasn't this way.
No.
Abortions were on the rise.
That's right.
Human life was devalued and continued to be devalued again and again and again. And here we are in Point of View today in 2019 talking about abortions are down. Funding is down. That's the victory. That's a trend that, again, Point of View didn't do this all by itself. Mm-mm. There's a whole community of Christians and other people who are anti-abortion and pro-life. And Point of View had an incredible impact in that trend going. And that's why we're asking you to give. In fact, it ought to be a simple decision for you and you and you. And we're asking you to give because we want to continue the battle until abortion is gone, until it's no more and human life is valued. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151.
And some people might listening right now, our listeners in, say, California, Illinois, New York, might say, well, I'm seeing it going the other direction. Well, yes, it's kind of like almost the best of times, the worst of times, because let's take New York for an example. They passed restrictions that would allow abortion right up to birth. And the reason they're doing that is because they see where the trend is going. Right. And so in some respects, you're seeing some of these states, and Virginia is one, Rhode Island's one, New York is one, a couple of others, that are actually almost preparing for the time in which they think Roe versus Wade might be overturned. So they want to try to have the most liberal state laws possible. And so even the negative proves the positive, doesn't it?
Yep, it sure does. But again, I just go back to that. You can't but help just clap your hands a little bit because babies are being saved that wouldn't have been saved before. And you can give. You can help us keep this going. We'd like to see a $10,000 in total gifts come in the next to the top of the hour. Well, you can give at pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net. You can also give at 800-347-5151. Won't you join at $50 a month? Join the Liberty Club. We'd love to give you the booklets. We'd love to give you the tumbler Yeti. That's a Yeti brand. It's really high quality, and because you're high quality, that's why we're giving you that gift. 800-347-5151. We've got 5 lines open right now for you. 800-347-5151. Kirby, did you know that every dollar will be doubled up to $50,000?
And again, we want to try to at least meet part of that match right now. And as you've heard me say just a minute ago, there's somebody else kind of in the wings saying, well, if you meet this match, I want to put something else on the table. So we need to really hear from you right now.
Absolutely.
800-347-5151. But also, you can simply go to the website, pointofview.net. Power, love, and sound mind, pointofview.net. And we're looking for 10 phone calls during this very lengthy break before we come back and chat with some of our guests. So again, go to the website.
When I turn on the news, there are days I wonder what's happened to our nation. So many things seem to be turned on their head. It makes you wonder, what can be done about it? Then I remember how Jesus talked about the power of truth and how it can set people free. We know the truth, and when it's spoken in love, it has the power to bring healing to our divided world. 2 Timothy reminds us that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, and of love, and of a sound mind. Is it possible in our day and age to once again see civil debate, common sense, and national unity? It seems very clear from 2 Timothy that we are to be bold, not fearful, to appreciate God's power to do good, and to demonstrate to the world His truth and love. But to communicate this to a broken world, they need you to join our team. Join the Truth Team. Your monthly support has the power to turn our nation back to real truth. Join the Truth Team today at pointofview.net/team or by calling 1-800-347-5151. That's pointofview.net/team. or 1-800-347-5151.
Point of View will continue after this.
You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kerby Anderson.
One half hour, and if you would like to join with us, we do want to open up the phones like we mentioned before. If some of you have a suggestion or maybe even a challenge for some of the donors that are already out there, some of the listeners out there, 800-351-1212. Now, that's the on-air line, and so we won't give that number again because we want most of you to call, of course, the pledge line, which is 800-347-5151.
If Point of View has blessed blessed you in the past or helped you maybe change what you were thinking and feeling before, give us a call. We would love to hear your story. And again, that number, I want to give that number. I lost the number.
347-5151, 1-800-347-5151, pointofview.net. And we do have a couple of gifts. Let me just mention a few that came in. Alexander from California has a single gift here. Penny from Arizona, a very significant gift, as well as Wendy from Traverse City, Michigan, a $1,200 gift, which, interestingly enough, was originally a $1,000 gift. But then they said, well, if you give $1,200, then you would be at the Liberty, the Century Club level, excuse me. And so those are some great gifts. And you have a couple of as well. I have some, thanks to Suzanne with a $150 gift. God bless you for that. Somebody joining at the $50 a month. They want the tumbler, they want the booklets, and they want to give to Point of View. Thank you for that from Nebraska. And then we have a $25 monthly gift. Thank you for that from California. And then I love this. This is a $10 single gift from Sarah. And she's grateful for Point of View. She used to be very left-wing, and she is no longer very left-wing. She has a disability. She loves the program. And so, again, that's the kind of conversion that is taking place, because we certainly try to bring as much news, information, and perspective as possible. And so that's certainly one of the things that we're doing. Let's, if we can, for just a minute, listen to someone else that has certainly benefited from Point of View.
Point of View Truth Team.
To all listeners out there, I've been listening for over 2 years. I just recently became a supporter. So I'm a proud supporter of Point of View, and so I would just encourage everyone who listens to this radio station and to your specific broadcast, because it has been so influential for me, and I refer people to it because you put out such great information, and it's so thought-invoking and conversation-stimulating. It's great. So thank you so much, and I'll continue to support you guys.
But I've decided I'm going to give Point of View something this year, because I think financially we're doing better. Point of View is one of, in my opinion, 2 or 3 places where you can really get this kind of information, and it is sorely lacking in our culture. And so Point of View, and there's a couple other programs, if we don't support them, I'm not convinced those messages will get out.
Thank you very much, and I just love your program. It's been an inspiration to me for many years. I just want to encourage all those of you to help keep Point of View on the air. We cannot afford to allow these stations to go empty. Please support Point of View.
Point of View Truth Team.
Brad Fisk in studio with me. And Brad, we've certainly got an opportunity for people to see their gift, their pledge doubled, and that match is still on the table.
Well, the clock's ticking. We have 21 minutes
to
get $6,015 pledged to match the full $10,000 today that we're wanting to match out of the $50,000. So let me just make it real clear. The next $6,015 will get us toward the $10,000 goal for today. 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151. We're down to 20 minutes. The time is flying. So give us a call right now with your gift. $6,000 through the door before the top of the hour is our goal.
A lot of people say, what am I giving to? And, of course, you're giving to the radio program. But in addition to that, I do a daily commentary that actually can show up in your inbox Monday through Friday. Penna Dexter does a weekly commentary that comes on Saturday. My commentary today is called Bring Your Bible, and that's because NFL quarterback Drew Brees was in a short video to promote Bring Your Bible to School Day. And I might just alert some of our listeners that see you at the poll is September 25th. Bring Your Bible to School is October 3rd. And you wouldn't think that this video that Drew Brees, who is just an outstanding quarterback for the New Orleans Saints, that would be controversial, except he did it for Focus on the Family. Brad used to work for Focus on the Family.
I did.
And he can set aside the arguments that were made that Focus on the Family is a religious extremist group, or an organization that is anti-LGBT. They couldn't even use the word ministry, could they?
Yeah, they couldn't. And I wish you could see inside behind closed doors at Focus on the Family. That is not the spirit there. That is not the heartbeat of Focus on the Family. Those people are loved, and they just don't understand, and I wish they did.
And so, again, that is my commentary for today. And let me just encourage you to pray for Drew Brees, because even though he's going to be playing against my Dallas Cowboys in about 2 weeks, I'm sad that he hurt his hand as he passed. Yeah. He hit it on by his thumb there. And so he, at the moment, is having difficulty even throwing a football, much less holding anything. But anybody that had any question about him, I love the quote from his former teammate and former running back, Reggie Bush, who said, anyone who doubts that Drew Brees' character or believes bogus headlines about this man does not know him, period. He's a great father, husband, leader, and most of all, true man of God. So if you find yourself saying, I'm really upset about what they said about Drew Brees, well, that's just another opportunity for you to find my commentary today. And then you can put it on your Facebook page or your Twitter page, or send it to someone and say, here's the rest of the story that you probably didn't hear from the mainstream media.
That's right. You know, the media has become so, they just lie. They lie. They put things in the corners out of the sight of anybody else when the news doesn't go their way. And, it's very sad, because we're talking about truth with a capital T. We do that all the time here. And media bias and media opposition is a huge factor that they try to squish and squash and just put away truth, so that nothing remains but evil and really a bunch of lies.
And again, see you at the poll is September 25th. So if you have a young person that was prevented from doing that, or Bring Your Bible to School is October 3rd. We had Jeremy Dice in studio with us, and that's another advantage. You get a chance to hear some of these lawyers that have actually gone before the Supreme Court, said, let me know, because I would love to have that case. I would love to take that case first to the Federal Court of Appeals, then the Circuit Court, and then to the Supreme Court. So those are the kinds of things that we're providing for you. If you will, some legal evaluation, some biblical evaluation, biblical commentary on what's happening in the news, and just really, in a sense, helping you understand what is true and what is not true. When Marlon Maddox started this program back in 1972, he was really trying to interrupt a humanistic secular filibuster. You weren't getting a chance to hear this. Now you have a chance to hear some of these ideas elsewhere. But then the bigger question is, what's really true? And there are just a lot of issues still we cover on Point of View that no other radio talk show, no other news outlet covers except right here on Point of View.
Before the top of the show, we'd love to hear from you directly right now. Our caller line is 800-351-1212. That's 800-351-1212. 1212. That'll get you into the studio if you'd like to come on, talk about Point of View, talk about what's bugging you. What do you think we need to be doing more of or less of? What do we need to be talking about? Give us a call and let us know that. 800-351-1212 is the number to get into our studio.
So again, one of the things that we try to do every single day is cover some of these stories. We have the Viewpoints commentary, the one today, Bring Your Bible to School. And if you were not familiar with that, that information is on the website. If you find yourself saying, I would like to know what my legal rights are, we have a link to some of the material from our friends at First Liberty, so you know what the rights are. And so these are just ways we're trying to equip you to make a difference. Even though we didn't have a chance to chat with our one guest here, we'll certainly connect that up later in the week. And all through this week, you're going to be hearing from, for example, a former Muslim who has become not only a Christian, but is a pastor, and talk about how we can reach out to others. We'll hear from Jim Dennison, who you've met on the plane, talking a bit about how we can be salt and light. We'll be hearing from Gary Bauer, a presidential candidate, and also an individual that has run a ministry for many years to really educate us about these issues. And in each case, we're trying to challenge you to go out and make a difference, and we want to equip you so that you can make the difference, and you can hear some of these incredible and encouraging testimonies from other people that have done so.
A quick reminder, we are under $6,000 to go to get our match cleared up for today. We need $6,000 to be pledged in the next little bit before the top of the hour, and that number to call to do that as you give generously to the ministry is 800-347-5151. That's 800-347-5151. 5151. They can also give online.
And again, that is pointofview.net. Let me encourage you to go there. Click on the button. It now says $50,000 matching fund. That's been added.
Okay.
Click on the button that says join the team, and you can then see the different levels you can join. You can click a button, put your credit card on there, and you're ready to go. So again, $6,000 left, and I want to finish that off before the top of the hour. Please call or go to pointofview.net, 1-800-351-1212. Phone number.
Point of View Truth Team. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, and of love, and of a sound mind.
Hi, everybody. This is Gary Bauer with American Values in Washington, D.C. You know, I've been involved in big battles in Washington for many, many years, and in those battles, time and time again, it's been Point of View Radio and Kerby Anderson who's provided me with a platform to sound the alarm. It doesn't matter whether the battle was over the sanctity of human life or preserving religious liberty or defending marriage. Kerby Anderson and Point of View have always been there standing strong. That's why today I'm asking you to join me in giving the most generous contribution you can to Point of View Radio. You know, Point of View and Kerby don't get big subsidies from Washington, D.C. like some liberals do. They depend on generous donors like you who believe in family, faith, and freedom. So right now, while you're thinking about it, make the most generous contribution you can to Point of View Radio and Kerby Anderson, and stay tuned to Point of View. I'll be coming up soon to talk with you on some issues from Washington, D.C.
And again, we'll have Gary Bauer with us on Friday, and by then I'm hoping that we'll not only met this match, but maybe put a second one on the table by then. And, I was just thinking that a lot of people are wondering, well, how do you respond to the Kavanaugh controversy? And people go, okay, some that have been in the news know what it is. Others are going, well, that's ancient history. No, it turns out that you have a story that came out in the New York Times, which then they've had to revise. I think the story came out simply because they wanted to promote this book. But nevertheless, there was this allegation of something he did when he was in college. First of all, I would say that anything that happened in college probably needs to be set aside because college kids sometimes do dumb things. Yep. But then it turns out that the woman that supposedly was part of this, and I'm trying to use a lot of euphemisms because it's pretty sexual and pretty degrading, actually says she doesn't remember anything like this. So even at a time when the New York Times is actually issuing a major revision to their blockbuster story, I know this will surprise you, many of the Democrats running for the presidency are calling for Brett Kavanaugh to be impeached. And so they're ignoring the fact that indeed there was a revision of the blockbuster story. But at least maybe common sense is breaking out even in Capitol Hill. Representative Jerry Nadler, who has wanted to impeach the President of the United States, who is the head of the House Judiciary Committee, nevertheless is saying, I don't think we're going to go and impeach a Supreme Court justice over something that allegedly happened back when he was in college. And, of course, I suspect never really did. So this is just another one of these examples of one of those stories that I don't really want to get into because if you get into all the details, you would just want to go take a shower after it's done. It's just as gross as possible. But it illustrates a point that we've made before, constitutional interpretation. These individuals that are liberal, progressive, secularist type of people recognize that you now have 5 justices on the Supreme Court that want to interpret the Constitution. So this is why all the criticism of Clarence Thomas, criticism of Brett Kavanaugh and others, and even the attempt to try to intimidate the Chief Justice John Roberts, because they recognize that winning is going in the opposite direction.
That's right.
And many of the liberal progressives knew that they could never pass legislation through Congress, never get it implemented through the state legislatures, but were dependent upon the bureaucracy, the swamp, and the federal judiciary to get some of this implemented, like bathroom bills and a variety of other things. And they simply are recognizing that those days seem to be numbered right now.
I become flabbergasted at the media just outright lying and just supporting the viewpoints personally that they have on the editorial board, the owners of the paper, whoever these liberals are. And then they have the audacity to come back and say, but you can't say what you believe. So it's like a one-way street, and I'm like, hello, where is common sense?
Yes.
Where did it go?
Well,
that's one of the that's why we come to people like Kerby Anderson and others in the worldview movement, nationwide, internationally wide. And other countries are laughing at us sometimes because they think it's ridiculous what's being printed and the lies that are being told. And I don't know about you, but I'm really grateful that Point of View has my back. I'm very grateful that my children and my grandchildren have something to look forward to in truth as long as programs like Point of View continue. 800-347-5151. Dedicate your gift to those grandbabies. Dedicate your gift to those kids. Dedicate this gift to your spouse or your pastor. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. Could we hear from 6 people to the top of the hour that would give it that $50 a month level? 6 of you right now that would join the Truth Team and say, you know what? I'm going to plant my flag in the stand right next to yours, and we're going to do the battle and win.
And again, $10,000 today, really it's $50,000. And so we've sort of decided just on this fly to divide it at $10,000 a day. But the reality is we already know there's somebody else that would like to put a match out there, but there's no more in putting the match out there if indeed
this one
we
cleaned up.
don't meet it. So I would hope that we would exceed $10,000, but we will see. And we just heard a minute ago from Gary Bauer, and you've known Gary Bauer since the days you would Focus on the Family. Someone else that also sings our song is Michael Ferris. And those two individuals that have been in Washington, D.C. for all those years, although Michael Ferris has moved around a little bit more, since then recognize the impact that we can have through this radio program. We're talking this week about the impact you can have in your local community. Maybe you run for office, or maybe you can run for school board, or maybe you can just influence your next door neighbor, your family, whatever. But they also recognize that you can join with us as we begin to alert you to some of these very important principles, these pieces of legislation. Right now, we even have an action item out there about the Equality Act, and so we're educating you about those issues, and they recognize that we wouldn't be where we were if it weren't for Point of View mobilizing you to make a difference.
Could I challenge you as I challenge myself? How often do you go to pointofview.net? The information that is there is absolutely wonderful. It is in some ways overwhelming. There's so much to talk about, and pointofview.net is highly maintained. Every day there's new content.
And so, again, we want to encourage you to recognize that you're not just supporting the daily radio program. I know some of you might just say, well, it's just at the local station because you hear it at your local radio station. But there are stations all over the United States, from Florida to Maine, from California all the way to Alaska, that actually carry this program as well. So as we gather together, join hands with one another, we can make a difference. And that's exactly what we're starting to see in terms of some of the very positive things that are happening in our culture. So we still have a few people waiting around for the phones to ring. We only have about a minute left before the end of the program. Now, just because we say goodbye doesn't mean we won't answer the phone. We'll answer for a few more minutes. Will. And so let's encourage you right now, get something to write with and write down 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151.
Okay, we're looking for 4 more people to check in at that level of $50 a month. Join the Truth Team, the Liberty Club, and get the free tumbler we talked about from Yeti. Hey, that is really cool. Well-built tumbler if you want one of those. And also all the booklets at that $50 a month tab or greater. And you can also give at any level. We have the Outlook magazine that you're going to get every month, which is very well written. But what's important right now is to support Point of View with any gift, any size. 800-347-5151. Every dollar you give will be doubled. I said doubled. 800-347-5151. Double your money right now.
We'll be back tomorrow, and I'll be sitting in this chair, but we will bring Nick Pitts in because lots of times he talks about millennials. Later in the week, we have Jim Dennison, Mary DeMuth, Noel Boucher, a variety of individuals. Of course, Gary Bauer just mentioned a minute ago, and all sorts of other people that we want to introduce you to. But just before we go off the air, let me encourage you to give us a call right now, 800-347-5151, or go to pointofview.net, and we'll be back here tomorrow.
When I turn on the news, there are days I wonder what's happened to our nation. So many things seem to be turned on their head. It makes you wonder, what can be done about it? Then I remember how Jesus talked about the power of truth and how it can set people free. We know the truth, and when it's spoken in love, it has the power to bring healing to our divided world. 2 Timothy reminds us that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Is it possible in our day and age to once again see civil debate, common sense, and national unity? It seems very clear from 2 Timothy that we are to be bold, not fearful, to appreciate God's power to do good, and to demonstrate to the world His truth and love. But to communicate this to a broken world, they need you to join our team. Join the Truth Team. Your monthly support has the power to turn our nation back to real truth. Join the Truth Team today at pointofview.net/team or by calling 1-800-347-5151. That's pointofview.net/team or 1-800-347-5151.
Point of View is produced by Point of View Ministries.